Karen Hoods, blowing whistles or Rothschilds? Introduction. With the enormous growth of the world Internet, many eminent people nowadays deliberately try to hide much of their biographical, business, family and relationship details from others, because if many of these secret details, especially if they contradict the image the person publicly represents, were accessible by the public, much of this information could portray them in an entirely different light. Karen Hoods is one of these such people. Initially, I had great difficulty in finding out much about her other than the extremely sparse details she has publicly volunteered to reveal about herself. Unfortunately, to succeed in pulling the wool over everybody's eyes for an extended period, you either have to be a great liar or have to be extremely meticulous in what you do. As a lawyer, and as we know all lawyers are simply highly paid liars, Mrs. Hoods misses out on that one. And as far as being meticulous, she falls short on that one too. It was hard work, but how I initially found out much more about her and her husband was through property transaction records, home sales and real estate listings in Washington, D.C. posted on the Internet. It was through these records that I found out her husband's real name, which is different to her own. These property transaction records with a Google Earth view of her and her husband's home at 5203 Falmouth Road, Westmoreland Hills, Bethesda, Maryland, an upmarket suburb out of Washington, D.C., can be viewed from the links in the description. These records show the property was purchased by Karen Hoods Revocable Trust and Barry Alexander Spriggle Trustee and Barry Alexander Spriggle Revocable Trust and Karen Hoods Spriggle Trustee on June 3, 2010. From these details revealing her and her husband's true name, a whole new picture was created. The facts: both Karen and her husband are Marxist Jews. They have a daughter, Elizabeth, about age 21. Karen is very careful never to reveal anything about her Ashkenazi Jewish background, family, private interests. Karen worked for the World Bank, controlled by Jews, as a senior lawyer for many years, and her husband has also worked for the World Bank as well. So how come, all of a sudden, she leaves the World Bank to become a whistleblower exposing corruption at the World Bank, IMF, Federal Reserve, U.S. justice system and U.S. government? Supposedly attacking fellow Jews? If she is a Rothschild disinformation agent or ambassador of the bankers themselves working for the British? What she is saying is briefly this: I am here to forewarn you all that the old, outdated, corrupt, Bretton Woods banking system has had its day, and is about to be replaced with a new world order financial system and world currency unit. It is really as simple as that. Barry Spriggle, her husband, was born on 23 May, 1952, and is an environment financing consultant and international lawyer with his office at home. Amongst his many positions, he has helped design environmental funds in more than 25 countries, including drafting up legal documents, operations manuals, grant-making procedures, investment policies, and fundraising strategies. He has also negotiated debt-for-nature swaps for the World Bank. He has written global forestry laws and environmental protection laws, and designed new environmental taxes and user fees which will soon be introduced all around the world for the public to access their own privatized, UN-controlled national parks, NPES and RED. He has also helped design and evaluate many projects for GEF, the World Bank, the United Nations Development Programme UNDP, KfW, AFD, USAID, WWF, CI, TNC, IUCN etc. Husband, Barry Spriggle, attended Dembone, Yale Law School 1975 to 1978, which Karen Hoods also attended, and it is presumed that is where they first met and subsequently he became Karen's husband. Barry Spriggle was senior legal counsel and director for conservation finance at the Worldwide Fund for Nature WWF USA based at 1250 24th Street, Northwest Washington, D.C., from 1989 to 2003, a very long time. The WWF was founded on April 29, 1961 by Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, with 5 others including Julian Huxley and Godfrey A. Rockefeller, all eugenicists. Today the WWF is based in Switzerland, has HRH the Duke of Edinburgh as its President Emeritus, has revenues of over €525 million, has over 5 million supporters worldwide, is the world's largest conservation organization, and derives approximately 57% of its funding from individuals and bequests, 17% from the World Bank, DFID, and USAID, and 11% from corporations. Karen Hoods, his wife, interestingly, was a senior legal counsel at the World Bank. Both the WWF USA and World Bank work together, and indirectly are controlled by City of London Jews with the British monarchy at the head. Mr. Spriggle has worked with Michael Rothschild of the Walton Family Foundation on the /Forever Costa Rica project, the first such program in a developing country to permanently meet the UN Global Protected Area goals. He is involved with the 2013 to 2017 Mediterranean MPA network strategy to introduce UN-mandated marine protected areas in the Mediterranean. He has developed the practice standards for conservation trust funds for the Conservation Finance Alliance CFA. Above all, Barry Spriggle has personally written the UN World Bank IMF Global Plan for Global Conservation Finance called limitations and opportunities for financing protected areas all around the world through World Bank IMF bilateral debt reduction for biodiversity conservation swaps, debt for nature swaps, introducing new property tax surcharges to pay for conservation land acquisition, greatly increasing visitor fees to conservation areas, etc. This involves massively increasing the current global spending of $6 billion per year to $45 billion per year. We remember, in 1987, at the Fourth World Wilderness Congress held in Denver, Colorado, the now late Edmund de Rothschild set up the World Conservation Bank. The outstanding author and speaker, George W. Hunt, some of his video material is still on YouTube, who attended the Congress, later explained how it or an equivalent organization to it in the future was to be used as the final decoupling mechanism to take over the entire assets of the collapsed banks of the world during a global crisis, by providing a new world financial system and global currency called the World Conservation Earth Dollar or something like it, issued against the collateral of 34% of the entire Earth's surface that has been transferred into UN conservation parks and biodiversity zones. Our own country here in New Zealand has long been completed. It's all a very clever, ingenious, evil, cunning, Marxist, British socialist plot to take over the world, and I regret to say, both Karen Hoods and Barry Spriggle are, right now, a very nasty and integral part of it.
Now, think of this as an elaboration on a larger scale, and what we're dealing with actually is humanity and the elite, the secret societies, the Vatican, they're traitors to humanity, because the one at the very core that's pulling the strings is a different species. They're not the human race. They're called Homo capensis. They have been on Earth together with humanity for before this ice age. And the reason I know about this is because I was trying to help out a movie producer who couldn't get his movie. It was called The Banksters Made Off with America, Edmund Drille. And he introduced me to his network of whistleblowers. One of the people in that network is a neurologist who went to Yale Medical School and was retired, and he was trying to find out what was at the very core of all of this corruption. No, they're not humans. They are so distinct from humans that if they were to mate with humans, their offspring would not be fertile. They are not fallen angels. They are critters. People who I am getting emails from saw them the day before. They look just like human beings, except they have these big skulls. And that is why in the Vatican, you see these crazy meters, is what they're called. And that's why the very first Jew, Moses, wore one of those things, because he was one of those Homo capensis as well. We have DNA samples of them. And the reason we know this is because it was in the papyri of one of the pyramids. I found this out from from the internet. But what is really remarkable, actually, is that we have had so much evidence, and we haven't had any studies into it. If you look at the archaeology, there is a civilization off the coast, because the sea level has risen by 400 meters. But what do we know about this ancient pre-Ice Age civilization? We do have a map that's left over from there, because it shows the coastline of Antarctica before the ice froze on it. And it's following that landmass perfectly. So what we have is evidence. There's also evidence in South Africa. There are a lot of these skulls that you find. Some are in Peru, some are elongated. But in other places, they're just round like pumpkins. And the individuals that were seen in Egypt, I've seen drawings of what their skulls looked like. It was just massive, much larger than human being skulls. And also, you know, in a human skull, there's something they call the parietal, where it's in 3 different segments. This critter doesn't have those separations. It's just, but they're also working in the banks in Portugal, because one of the people who saw this, you know, in Saturday Night Live, there was a broadcast of something called the cone heads. So that's a slang word for them. Although my mother refers to them as the boneheads. But they're alive and running around and doing all kinds of mischief.
Now, some people might find the information you're presenting right now to be completely, some people might say it's completely crazy. What do you say to those people who are watching this right now going, I don't believe a word of it?
I would say you need to read the articles that Ed Spencer has sent me. You need to look at the skulls in the museums. You need to read the DNA studies. And you need also to think about what kind of motive the human beings might have for being traitors to their species. Why would they do this? Why would we have a banking system where all the money ends up going to the Vatican and people run around starving? Why would we have, for example, if you look at what the actual teachings of Jesus Christ were, as opposed to when you had translations and various things happened and got put in there. And as some of the whistleblowers have been discussing this, information, articles on Homo capensis have disappeared from the internet. They've been taken down. And other critics who, I don't know why they're getting all the coverage they are, and they've been getting features in Wikipedia. Let me talk a little bit about Wikipedia.
Sure,
okay?
sure.
I had an experience with Wikipedia. This person who was attacking the information on Homo capensis had a big, long article featuring her on Wikipedia. So I know who Wikipedia is. I know whose interests Wikipedia serves. And when somebody who's just starting out gets a big write-up, I know what that really means. You know, some people have said, I obviously have to be a disinformation expert because I'm getting press coverage. I can show you all of the effort that I took to get exposure and for people to vet my story, and that's there. I'm simply getting exposure.
What do you say to those people who would call you a disinformation agent?
I have always been working in a team of whistleblowers. If something happened to me, it was just going to blow up what I was trying to uncover, because I was talking about a cover-up of corruption. As I've said, the whistleblowers are like Toto in The Wizard of Oz, pulling the curtain back. And people are now seeing the wizard, which is this corrupt group. And they're also seeing that the mainstream media is projecting onto a screen their propaganda, which is not reality. What you get in the mainstream media has a hidden secret agenda. It wouldn't be there if people whose interests are behind that cabal is what they're called. So that's, if anybody is saying, am I for real? Yeah, I'm for real. When you get to be a 33rd degree Mason, and the Black Pope, and also the archaeologists, they all know that Moses was Akhenaten. And if you know that, then you know that Akhenaten had this huge skull, and his daughters had this huge skull. So I'm going to presume that they probably also know that there are individuals, and they're not humans. They do not have the same kind of DNA that we do. And I can tell you what I know about them. They're very mathematical. Their average intelligence is about 150. And they do not have creativity. They're not emotional. So that's, if anybody is saying, am I for real? Yeah, I'm for real. Now,
but given your whistleblower status with the World Bank, do you think that by promoting or discussing these types of theories hurts your credibility and all in the minds of some of the people who may have first heard of you through the whistleblower status at the World Bank?
I'll tell you what, I've gotten a fair amount of feedback like that, and I'll tell you what I say to these people. I say that it has been an incredible experience to have made it this far. And the number one thing that I've learned in that process is to trust my own intuition, because that has really served me very well. And my intuition is telling me that this is the time to tell people this. And my intuition is telling
I have evidence but not proof, evidence that Karen Hudes has lost her mind.